So anything you say from here on out, everybody will have access to. Just thought I'd let you know that. Anyway, so it's good to see everybody. Hope you had a good weekend. I know that we had a lot of open houses going on, so that's good. Hope they had some people show up. They certainly didn't have a football game to watch. So anyway, things are good. It's Monday morning, the sun is shining, and we're ready to go back to work. Today we are going to talk about two things actually, and probably the most that you do during the course of things. I mean, when you list a property, you list a property and you put your sign up and you put it on Facebook and you hold an open house and things. And certainly there's activity. You walk the neighborhood, you door knock, you hand out flyers to explain what the property is about and all of that. And hopefully during the term of all of that, you will have also thought to put it on the MLS. And the MLS is what's probably going to generate, like it or not, it's probably going to generate 80 or 90% of your sales is other realtors bringing their clients to the table. That is just the way things go. So at that point, when we get an offer in, we're going to present it. And how many offers are we going to present? We're going to present all offers unless the seller has specifically told us not to bring an offer from an investor that's all cash or whatever. Even those, I'll call and tell them on the phone. Had one of those this morning, as a matter of fact, that I emailed my seller and said, well, we received an offer over the weekend. However, it was an investor offer and it was for $40,000, $50,000 less than what we're asking for it. I'll be sending that over as soon as I finish a training class. So I'll send it over to them. They can look at it and do whatever they want. So even when I am told that they're not going to take less than X amount of dollars, I'm still going to try to get the offer in their hands so that they can't ever say that I didn't get an offer to them. So even when they tell me not to, I still do. Terrible. See, I don't listen to my sellers sometimes because I think it's protecting us all if they actually have it in their hand. But now we're going to move to the next step. And we got an offer in that was acceptable to everybody. And everybody signed it, and everybody signed any counteroffers that were involved. Anybody signed anything that was happening. And now we actually have an executed offer. We have an offer that we can actually take to escrow. So today we're going to do two things, and I'm going to bounce back and forth a little bit because what you have to do now and what escrow has to do now kind of run parallel with each other. So since they run parallel with each other, we're going to be skipping back and forth a little bit between what you have to do and what escrow will be doing in the meantime. So that's why it says on this little title, Life of an Escrow and Countdown to Closing. And now you have an accepted offer, and now what? So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what's happening, what you need to be aware of, what you need to be facilitating, and what your buyer and or your seller needs to do in order to facilitate the contract. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I will be bouncing back and forth. Carolyn probably has already been efficient enough to upload the paperwork. If you want to print it and follow along, or you can follow along on the screen. If you print it, you can take notes, whatever you want to do. But we have an accepted offer, and now what? And I want to skip down here. Remember, I said that we're going to go back and forth a little bit, and we are. But I want to talk about this for just a second, because notice that at the very top of this is an executed offer, which means a fully signed residential purchase agreement. But do I have to have it fully signed if we're going to do a counter offer? Yes, you still need to have the initials at the bottom of each page of the RPA, even if you're doing a counter offer. And the reason for that is because in the RPA, the residential purchase agreement, there are a lot of things that we don't counter. There are a lot of things that we aren't changing. There are days in there, you know, we've talked about those as we've gone through the agreement. There are 17 days for this and 5 days for that, and 21 days for that, and whatever it happens to be that's written in there. And who pays for what the allocation of cost is. And all of those things are important things to escrow. And so escrow is looking for signatures on all those things to make sure that that's legally part of the contract. And so the executed offer and counter offer, if there are any addendums that are clarifying addendums that take care of something in there, and contingencies. And the contingency I'm talking about here, obviously, is the contingency for the sale of a property in order to buy this one. That becomes a contingency that escrow needs to know about, because there's a certain amount of things that they can do, and there are certain things that they can't do until those are done. In addition to that, you're going to have your agency and your PRBS, which is your possible representation of more than one buyer or seller, your fair housing disclosure, your BRBC, buyer representation, broker compensation, all need to be signed. That's what creates an offer. That's what creates a signed offer. That's what creates an executed offer. So with all of those things signed, initialed where they're supposed to be, and of course, you're going to have compliance checking up on those things, and a TC probably checking up on those things too. But we do two things at that point in time. If we are using a TC, and even though I recommend it, it's not required. If you feel like you don't have very much business going on and you can handle it yourself, or you're capable of doing it on your own and you don't need anybody to check up on you, whatever that case may be, it's not a mandatory thing. You guys are independent contractors. You can spend your money the way you want. And you can use a TC or you cannot. I do recommend it, but that's just me. I use a TC. I don't do that very many. I don't do very many deals in a year anymore, but I started using a TC as soon as they became available. In fact, before they were called TCs, I just had an assistant, and she took care of everything paperwork wise, because I had more valuable things to do. Plus, I was the guy who always had to do the talking and things. So she felt comfortable just sitting back and doing paperwork, making sure everything was signed and initialed where it should be. The other thing we're going to do on day one is we're going to open escrow. All right, so how do we go about opening escrow? Well, now I'm going to flip back here for just a second. Open escrow. So here's what escrow needs. This is the life of an escrow. Escrow receives a fully executed, clear copy of the CAR contract and assigns it an escrow number. Escrow is then open. So the reason I underlined or underscored or whatever you call it, the word clear, is because oftentimes by the time we send something out electronically for a signature and it comes back to us, and then maybe we walk it into escrow because there's an office within our office, or maybe we email it to them or whatever. We just need to make sure that it's a clear copy. You know what happens sometimes on these deals, and you know it as well as I do, and that is that when you get something that's sent back and forth 2 or 3 times and it goes through your buyer's printer or your seller's printer or whatever, because they print it instead of DocuSign it and things. Just review it to make sure it's a clear copy so that escrow is going to be able to understand everything that's there. It is easy for all of that transferring of paperwork and things to get an E and an A to look like the same thing, or C and an E, and that may not affect very much when you're looking at something that says clear copy. But if you're looking at something that's talking about a buyer's name or a seller's name or an address or anything like that, obviously clear is essential. All right, at that point in time, escrow is opened. They will give you a number. That number is, each escrow office has their own numbers that they deal with. And most of the time, probably all the time, but I'm going to say most because there's been a couple times that I've seen that it didn't happen. That number, 45321, And then it'll have a dash and it'll have an initial. And the initial might be whatever it is, CC for Carolyn Cobb. Now, Carolyn's not an escrow officer, but I don't want to pick on anybody. But it'll say CC, and so then you know, and escrow knows, because sometimes the escrow departments have more than one person working on these deals, that CC is the one that's actually working on this file. And so if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have additional amendments or something that need to take place, anything that goes on, then you know who to refer to. Refer to it by the escrow number, because that's the way they have it recorded in their system. They don't have it by the buyer's name or the seller's name. I guess they do eventually, but you have to work your way through things. It's not as easy. It's a lot easier to type in 54321 and have the names, all the names, and the address and everything all come up. So everything will be in one place. So when you talk to them by email or whatever, refer to the escrow number for them. That speeds up everything. The next thing escrow will do after they open escrow is they are going to order legal and vesting, and opens a title order with the title company of choice. Now, the choice, if you think back to when we wrote up the RPA a couple weeks ago and things, there was a choice there. Either the buyer asked for a specific title company, or the agent put a plug in their ear about a particular title company, who knows? Or they put it in as seller's choice, in which case the seller and the seller's agent get to choose who it is that the title company is. But escrow is not going to pick your title company for you. If you don't have it in there, they're going to call you and say, who do you want to use title? Who do you want to use for title? So that's what they're looking for. They don't make any of the contractual decisions. They only listen to what the agents have to say. So whoever the agent and their client chooses to be the title company, that is the one that the escrow is going to order all of the information from. Now, they're going to get that information, and they get it fairly quickly. I would say probably if they order it, today is Monday, and if they ordered it today, more than likely they would have it before the end of the week, probably just like a 3-day or 4-day or something like that. It would not take very long. So within the first few days, they have that. So based on that, based on the legal vesting and the information that they have off of your residential purchase agreement, they are going to type instructions. And their instructions are going to basically, other than general instructions that say a little bit about how escrow works, they are going to be the exact things that you wrote in your offer or that the other agent wrote in their offer. You need to take time to review those. Those will be done probably within, assuming that the earnest money deposit gets in on time and the title company is caught up with everything and can get you that, probably within the first week, you will have escrow instructions. Escrow instructions as understood by the escrow officer doing it. It's up to you at that point in time as an agent, regardless of whether you're working with the seller or whether you're working with the buyer. It's up to you at that point to review the escrow instructions and make sure that it says the same thing that you meant it to say. All right. If there are discrepancies, and when I say discrepancies, I mean it could be as little as a misspelling of a name. It could be off by a digit on an address, or who knows. These escrow instructions have people working on them. It's not part of an AI system that scans your, at least not today, that scans your contract and hopefully prints out an escrow instruction. I hear them talking about that, so that'd be interesting if that happened. I don't think it'll ever happen fully, but it could be a lead in for something. But we need to review them to make sure that those things are correct. We don't want to go halfway through the escrow and then all of a sudden have to get a bunch of amendments and everything else taken care of because that wasn't what we told them. So we get those out, we look at them, everything is good, everything looks fine. And then hopefully that's quick so that escrow instructions can be sent out to the seller and the buyer. Or perhaps they're going to keep them here in the office and the seller or the buyer is going to come in to sign paperwork. There are a lot of different things that happen in those situations. I know that in the years that I've been in business, I used to like to have the people come into my office if it was convenient, if it was in town, if it was close to town or something. Obviously, I didn't have them drive across 2 states or anything else just to sign paperwork. But if it's convenient and convenient on both sides, number one is if it's convenient for them to get there. And then number two, it creates a real convenience if they're in the office, because if they're in the office and you need things done, you need extra things sent, you need something changed, everybody is there to take care of that thing. So we need to get those escrow instructions back. Things like that came out on the preliminary title report that they ordered from the title company. We'll talk about different companies that there are liens against the property on. The lien might be the bank that they have the mortgage. The lien might be other liens, like there could be tax liens on it. There could be mechanics liens on it. There could be a variety of different things that are attached to the property that slows down the process. And that's why we're all looking at those things right off the bat. The other day, I think when we had our class on Friday or Thursday or something, we went over profiles and preliminary title reports to explain all the things to look for and where to find them and things. So those things all need to be uncovered in the first few days. It really slows things down if they aren't uncovered pretty quickly. Okay, while escrow is doing all those things, one of the things that they're looking for is they're looking for within the first 3 days, unless a different time frame has been discussed and agreed to, they're looking for earnest money deposit. The earnest money deposit by contract default says that it'll be wire transferred to escrow within 3 business days. All right, so they're waiting to see that before they move forward on a lot of these instructions and things, because if they don't get that deposit, then do we really have an escrow yet? Not really. Do we really have a contract? Not really, because the contract said within 3 business days. And if we're hanging out 5 or 6 days, there's already a breach that could be a problem, and maybe not. Maybe it's just, timing, and you went through a weekend and somebody's out of town and things happen. Those things can be communicated back and forth and we understand what they are. But if we're just sitting on it, if nothing's happening, then we have a problem or a potential problem. So we need to be able to get those things in. Now, once the instructions are received back from the seller, escrow can begin to order payoff demands and homeowners association demands if they're applicable, and any other things, interspousal, just basically anything that either comes up on the preliminary title report and or comes up on the SI, which is a statement of information that they provide with their escrow instructions, which talks about debts that they have, or it talks about previous spouses or divorces that are in play, or anyway, different things like that. It's a statement of information about the seller. They fill that out. Escrow uses a combination of the preliminary title report and the statement of information that comes in from the sellers to move forward on getting the payoff demands out. And gosh, there's a homeowners association. Okay, has that been done? There's paperwork that has to be done. Some homeowners associations have to do client interviews before they will allow somebody to even move in and be a member of the association. So we need to get all of those things happening in the first few days. That does not need to be a 2-week or a 3-week battle to try to get those things done. We need to get them done right away. So once the instructions are received back from the buyer, then the escrow can verify the lender information, who are you getting your money from? And what type of loan. They can put in the fire insurance information, and they can put up anything they need to make sure that the buyer side of it is put together. So the seller sides come in, and obviously we need a seller's forwarding address if we can. The buyer's address is usually, although investors don't apply, but usually buyers are going to be living in the property and the sellers obviously are not. And so we need a forwarding address just so we can make sure that supplemental taxes and different paperwork information and stuff goes into the right hands at the right time. So they're working with the lender at this point in time to try to find out where we are with the loan, what things are going on there. That does not remove you from that little series of events. You don't have anything to do necessarily with ordering payoffs and things, but you do have the responsibility of keeping up on top of the loan approval process. And that is through the lender. Now the lender, when they've got everything done and they're ready to roll, then they're going to request an estimated closing statement from escrow. And it'll have the buyer's fees and things, the different fees that they might have to get into the property, including everything from down payment to enough money for insurance and all of those kind of things, and the escrow fees and the title fees and the other things that they have to come up with. Those things will all be in there as part of their closing statement. It's an estimated closing statement at that time. And it says it right across the top. It says estimated closing statement because it comes out prior to closing. And if closing is delayed for some reason, then it could change tax prorations. It could change insurance prorations. It could just change different things. And so it's an estimated closing statement at this time. But it's usually a pretty good indication that the loan documents are coming. Now, prior to the loan docs coming, and they come to escrow, and escrow reviews them, and they go through them and they make sure that everything's exactly the way it was supposed to. And they talk about, I put in here last minute items like home warranty bill. If they see on the contract that there's a home warranty, but they don't have a bill yet, then they're going to be asking for it. If they have an NHD, they're going to be asking for it. If there was termite work that had to be done in the contract, they'd be asking for it because they need everything together prior to closing out their file in order to make sure everybody gets paid. Because once money is dispersed and the sellers have moved to Maine, it's pretty hard to get things done. Then it's all by kind of like a wish and a promise and things. It's kind of like, you know what, we were supposed to pay their home warranty bill and it didn't get turned into, it didn't get given to whatever, escrow, and so they didn't pay it. They didn't have a bill, so they couldn't pay it. So they'll ask for it. Make sure we help get those things together. The lender is going to send out a CD. It's a certification disclosure. It has to do with all of the deferred payment and all of the fees that the buyer is going to have. Now, this is based on getting ready to fund this loan, so everything's looking pretty good there. So once that CD has been in the hands of the buyer for 3 days, on the third business day, they can sign their loan docs. So they sign their loan docs, but they have to have been given that 3-day period. But they can sign their loan docs if they choose to go forward. If there was nothing wrong, if they understood everything that was there, and if everything was good, then they could sign their loan docs. And everything gets sent, it gets packaged by escrow. They sign the loan docs, they put everything together along with all of escrow's information that they needed to have in there. And they send it all back to the lender. They usually overnight it. Occasionally, there'll be somebody, depending on whether it's a local lender or something, sometimes they'll send somebody by to pick it up. But we don't want to send it with the buyer. We don't want to send it with anybody mainly. We want to make sure that somehow it gets back to them. Some lenders allow you to email it to them, but they want to follow up with wet signatures after the fact. But bottom line is we need to have escrow package it all and then get it back to the lender as quickly as possible. And as soon as and then the funder is going to review the documents and they'll send a few funding conditions maybe. They'll have a couple of missing items or corrections or something. That's when they take care of this. If everything, they might send it to the broker, they might send it to the escrow company. And there may not be any. Sometimes it's just a title review on something. Sometimes the funder reviews it and they said, oh, well, what about this? This doesn't look like it was cleared. And they can ask for a few things to make sure that their loan is ready to fund. And when all the conditions are in escrow and lender, then the lender will fund the loan. And the way the lender funds the loan is that they send the money to title. They don't send it to escrow. It goes to title. Title gets the money. They can make all the necessary payoffs and everything. They can pay off the old mortgage. They can pay off other things that might have been in there. They can pay off whatever. And they pay those things out because it's their responsibility. They have two responsibilities, probably more than that, but they have at least two responsibilities in this. One is that they transfer a clear title. And that means that when the new buyer is in place and it's now in his name, that there is nothing on there that he would be liable for. It would all be cleared up prior to that. And so that's what they're making sure of. The other thing is that it's an insurance company. And you see that when you see the paperwork that comes from it. It'll say whatever, all Cal title and insurance or something. And it'll have an insurance notification on there just to ID the fact that not only is it free and clear, but we're actually insuring the things that we've looked at, the things that appeared on the preliminary title report. We're ensuring that all of those things are taken care of. And whether it's a CLTA, like we talked about the other day, California Land Title, or ALTA, which is American Land Title being the more detailed. But regardless of which one it is, they will have followed that process and made sure that the title is clear. Then from there, once all that's done, once the title company has received the funds from the lender, they contact escrow. And they contact escrow and they say, okay, we have all of the funds necessary to close this file. If you're ready to close, when would you like to close? And escrow says, okay, we've got all our paperwork and things, so let's set up a time to close tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to set up a Tuesday closing. And recordings happen twice a day. When I say twice a day, I mean the title company has to have the title paperwork over to the county that they're working with. And not every county is exactly the same, but they're very close to the same. Sometimes there's exceptions made for a day before a holiday, or a day before, or a Friday, for instance, heading into a weekend, because they'll work on them later and things. But basically, if you're going to record in the morning recording, your paperwork, everything needs to be done. Escrow and title need to have communicated, and they need to set that up by 4 o'clock the prior business day to have it set up for the recording at 8 o'clock. Now, the recording at 8 o'clock does not mean that 8 o'clock, the buyers are gonna own the property. It means it's set up for a recording at that time, and there may be 100, depending on the county, there may be 1,000, I don't know, but there's a lot of them in there. And I don't know where you are in the pile, so to speak. But you are in there set for recording, and you will record that in that morning shift, as long as everything is right when it gets before them. Them being the county people. But it will record in the morning recording, or it'll record in the afternoon if you've got it set up to record by noon. And once the title company gets confirmation from the county recorder that this file has been recorded, then they get a hold of escrow and they say, okay, this is recorded. It's all done. It's good to go. And then escrow kind of gets ready to close out their file. And when they get ready to close out their file, they're going to, they've already done some of these things, but they're going to record changes if there were any. They're going to pay off charges if applicable. They're going to look for an incoming wire from the title company, because remember what I said a minute ago, when the lender funds, they fund it to title. They don't give it to the escrow company. They give it to title, because title has to have the money to take care of any of the mortgage payoffs and things, because they're transferring a clear title. And until that mortgage lien is removed, then you don't have clear title. So we clear the title, we take care of everything. A wire comes from the title company. And again, that'll depend on timing and things. You know that if somebody's trying to do a wire too late in the day, so it happened to be in an afternoon recording and didn't get done until 4 o'clock or something, you're not going to get the wire today. You'll probably get the wire tomorrow. Or if we're dealing with a Friday or a holiday, then maybe a couple of days. But until escrow receives the wire from the title company, then they can't take care of all the disbursements that they need to. So they'll get the wire from the title company. They'll do a balance just to make sure that it is what they had on their record. They'll balance out the file. They'll issue checks to anybody that they had to, any of the termite company work, any of the NHD, any of the, all of those things that we've asked for during the thing, a home warranty, as long as they know how much they're supposed to pay and who they're supposed to pay it to and things. And those things are all done. And once those are all done, when it says issue checks, one of those is to Century 21 Masters, and it gets issued to Century 21 Masters. And then the lovely Veronica takes care of one last balance on everything. And then she knows what percentage Michelle is at, and she knows what percentage Phyllis is at, and she knows what percentage, and she will email a digital check to you. And or you can set it up for direct deposit or something, I think. But bottom line is that you'll get it from Veronica probably a day or so after the file has closed. Once the file is closed, obviously it now belongs to somebody else, so you can give the keys to the new owners. All right. So this is just, I'm not going to go through this because I just did, but this is just a little graph of kind of who takes care of this and how it happens. But you can see that it starts out by obtaining all the signatures and ordering the title search. And those are the things that we just talked about. This is just a little graph if you wanted to show your clients how it works, or if you wanted to just for a review know where we are in this whole thing, or if somebody's asking you what's going on, you can let them know. It's just for you to be able to use for your own benefit. So let's go back. Oops, I scrolled the wrong way. Anybody need Dramamine here, or are you still okay? All right. So let's talk about this countdown to closing thing. Okay, now we know what escrow is doing. And we know that we're certainly involved in part of that, as is the buyer and the seller. But let's review some of the things that we need to take care of. Now, these days are, unless changed, written into the contract. All right, and when I say these days, we just talked about open escrow and TC, but disposition of EMD, earnest money deposit, day 1 through 3. That's what everybody's looking for. Those are business days, because obviously, since we're trying to get wire transfers done, if there's a bank that's closed on a Sunday or Saturday or whatever, they don't do wire transfers on Saturday and then they're closed Sunday. So that's why we've given a little leeway here. But bottom line is that within 3 days, they should be able to get that in. Order the natural hazard disclosure or the property disclosure for the property. This is the disclosure, most of you probably know, but this is the disclosure that talks about the property hazards or potential property hazards. Had to get my P's there in order. But those things they don't have anything to do with the house itself. They have to do with whether or not the property is in a high fire area or a very high fire area. It has to do with whether or not it's in a flood area, whether or not it's in a liquefaction area. We have a lot of properties throughout the desert that's built on sand, and they try to compact the sand as much as possible. But if there were something major that happened from water or from earthquake or whatever, that sand could move. So anyway, it's just kind of puts that in perspective that you are out there. There are not a lot of seismic maps in California. However, I would say that there probably doesn't need to be, because we know that almost everywhere, if you're not near a fault, you're near a finger fault or something. We've all felt something where it's, here it is. I have a daughter that lives in Las Vegas, and between us and Las Vegas, there are little, I don't know what you want to call them, but little tremors or something like that happen every once in a while. And she'll text and say, "Oh, did you feel that? Did you guys have an earthquake?" And I go, "No, I didn't feel that." And then other times I will have felt it. So they kind of spread out. You don't really know where you are and things. Well, that movement at all, if I felt it, there was movement. And if there was movement, it has the chance of shifting sand or shifting soil or shifting rocks or something else. So anyway, we have to let people know about that. So we need to order that property disclosure report right away. Now, we have, by contract, unless we've written something different, by contract in the residential purchase agreement, we have 7 days as a seller to get this paperwork, plus all the other disclosures we have to do, and we're going to talk about those in just a second. But we have 7 days to get all those disclosures in place and given to the buyer. The buyer has 17 days to make decisions on whether or not they want to move forward, or whether or not some of the things that we told them about are too impactful to their lifestyle or whatever. It may be too impactful to the price of their insurance, because if it's in a high fire area or a very high fire area, it may put them in a position where they can't even afford the insurance on it, because instead of being $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 a year, it's $7,000 or $8,000 a year. And their type of loan requires that it be impounded, which means it's going to impact their loan amount by $7,000 a year or $600 a month. And $600 a month on top of the regular payment changes whether or not they can afford it. So they need that information up front. And when I say upfront, contract calls for 7 days, and that is sufficient time to put those things together. If I ordered an NHD right now on a property, and I just pulled the keyboard over here and got online and ordered an NHD, I would have it before class was over. they get it out to you generally that fast. It's all computerized by address. So on their end, all they have to do is type in the address and poof, it sends it over. And it'll be about a 20-page report or something like that that talks about all of those things. We need to decide when we're doing an offer, we're doing a purchase, whether we're going to ask for a wood pest inspection. There's a place for reports in allocation of costs. If we're a buyer, I always recommend that we write that in because I want to at least have my buyer know and understand that there are or there are not wood pests. Are there termites? Is there dry rot? Is there fungus? Is there whatever? I would like my buyer to be able to know that. From a seller standpoint, it doesn't mean that they've asked for us to clear it, to have all the work done, but they may ask us for that. We need to get that ordered right away. That usually only takes a couple of days. If you call the termite company or the wood pest inspection company, they usually can have the inspection done within a day or two. So that's not a difficult thing to do. If you order it in the first 3 days, it's not a difficult thing to have done by day 7 when all of these reports are due. Day 1 through 5, we need to, and I say we because we're agents, and we need to make sure that the loan application process is moving along. We don't have to have our approval yet, but it would be nice to know if my buyer is not getting the paperwork into the lender the way they're supposed to, or if I call from the seller standpoint and I find out that the buyer's not getting paperwork in, or they've been in communication or tried to communicate with the other agent and they're not getting a call back or something. I want to know those things. So I want to check in that first 5 days whether or not the loan application process is even moving along. Hopefully, if they're working through one of our lenders, when I say our, I'm talking about for 21st Century Lending. If they're talking about one of our lenders, that loan application process will basically have started when you ask them to pre-qualify your clients. And they will start that application process at that time. So by the time you get a pre-approval on your clients, they have pre-approved the buyer to buy a house at a certain price. You may not have found the house yet, but at least you know they qualify for $725,000 or whatever that number happens to be. And they will have already started that process, but it doesn't hurt. Remember the communication thing. You know, sometimes we go like a week or 10 days or whatever without talking to anybody. If you're under contract, I don't know how that works. I don't know how you can stand back for so long and just wonder what's going on and not really know. And then you find out because the buyer gets a hold of you, not because you took it upon yourself. Wouldn't it be nice if the buyer didn't have to get a hold of you, if you were able to just get a hold of the buyer and say, hey, I talked to the lender today and everything seems to be going okay. They're still waiting for your whatever. And then maybe that'll push the buyer to get it done, or maybe it's not the buyer's thing. Maybe it's a mortgage payoff or something. Who knows what the situation is? Maybe they need to know a balance on one of the loans, something. It's part of their verification. Maybe they're waiting for a VOE, a verification of employment or something. But at least we know. And then we can let our client know, and we can let the other agent know. So everybody kind of knows. We communicate, we stay in sync. We know exactly where we're at. I know we've heard the word now for the last few years since the NAR thing has ballooned and stuff, but we've heard that word transparency over and over and over again. And that word transparency is not just in who pays a commission and who doesn't. It's also in all these other things. If we are communicating regularly, we're a good agent. You know, I don't care. I know everybody's schedule is different. We've talked about scheduling and things, but sometime during your scheduling, you need to have a day or a time of a day or multiple times on multiple days, whatever the case may be. It depends on how much business you have going on. But we need to have time to dedicate to administrative work. And I'm not talking about getting paperwork signed because you can have a TC do that. But I'm talking about those phone calls that give updates to people on where we are and what we're still waiting for. And I haven't gotten this back yet. Or the lender is right here and people know. And you think of it from your side. Don't you think from your side that you'd feel better if the other agent were in contact with you fairly regularly? And I know what that answer is. You don't even have to answer it aloud, but answer it to yourself. All right, so the loan application process is moving. Has the appraisal been ordered? I want to know that. When I talk to the lender, if I'm representing a buyer, I want me to be the contact person when the appraisal wants to go see the property. I know some people say, well, the seller's agent should take care of that. Well, that's fine. More than one person can take care of it. The reason I want to know about it is because I want to know that that's happened. I'm representing a buyer who is working with this lender. So who better than me is going to be able to set up things for an appraiser? Okay, the appraisal was ordered. The appraiser calls me because I'm the contact and says, I'd like to come out there. I'll be in that area on Thursday afternoon, or I'll be there again on Saturday morning. Great. Let me make a quick phone call and find out what's best. I call the other agent. I let them know what's going on. They say, oh yeah, well, the appraiser called me too. Great. So we know that that's happening. Do you want me to go out and unlock it, or are you going to be there? And those communications can solve a lot of problems down the road. The appraiser doesn't have keys most of the time. They don't have a Supra. They don't have a central lock. They don't have whatever it is that's going to take to get in there. So they need access from the agent. Don't just send them out to talk to a buyer. Well, the buyer will be there. They said they're going to be home that morning. That's not professional. Professional is that the agent representing everybody is going to be there. So just make sure that you know that the appraisal's been ordered. You know, if we're trying to get a loan approval in 17 days, which is, we're going to cover that in just a second, the contract says within 17 days, and the appraisal doesn't get ordered in the first week, doesn't get ordered till day 10 or 12 or 13 or whatever, you're not going to have an appraisal back that quick. An appraisal takes a few days for them to line it up. And then it takes a few more days for them to prepare it paperwork wise and get it to the lender and things. So there's a process there. It's not like an overnight thing. It's not like somebody drives out, like takes half an hour to do a CMA in their office and then drives out to see if the house is there. They have to have pictures of all the other houses that they're using for comparables. And they have to have measurements and they have to have other things go on, and all that gets put into a report and submitted to the lender. The lender looks at it to see if it meets their guidelines. They look to see if there's any adjustments that have to be made to get that value, and they move forward that way. So there's a process. So we have to remember that since we're not the only one doing it, we just need to stay on top of people that are, right? I told you that we would review our escrow instructions when we talked about escrow coming out. That'll be probably within a week. You will review those and make any changes that are necessary, or just give the escrow. I talk to escrow people a lot. And, you know, one of the things is that they tell me sometimes, which is a funny thing when I hear about it, is that they went ahead and sent out the escrow paper. You call them and say, well, you know what, this is wrong. But they already sent it out because you didn't get back to them at all. I guess you got it and you put it on the corner of your desk and it sat on the corner of your desk and you were going to get to it one of these days, or you stuck it in a paper file or whatever. Well, it's going to go out. If they've got to get it out into the hands of the people. So if you don't review it and check for changes or anything, then it's your fault, not theirs. So in those escrow instructions, you're going to get a commission instruction. And it's going to say so much goes to Century 21 Masters and whoever. It's going to go to Lydia. And the other side is going to somebody from wherever, Coldwell Banker or something. That's fine. We just need to review those. We need to make sure that that's right. And we need to send them for a broker signature. Now, there's a lot of people that are brokers out there, but you are not the broker. Randy is the broker. And so what we need to do, I don't care if you're an associate broker or if you're, whatever the situation is, we just email it, DocuSign it, scan it somehow to Randy. He will sign it where it says broker signature. Even if it has your name written there, it still needs to have Randy's signature on there. And once that happens, then that will go back to the escrow company. Doesn't have to go back at the same time, but that'll go back to the escrow company. All right, so here we talked about this before. Disclosure, seller disclosures to the buyer's agent no later than 7 days. This is in the contract. You can change that if you want to in the contract, but the contract defaults to 7 days. And it's the transfer disclosure statement, TDS. ESD, exempt seller disclosure. That's somebody who doesn't have to do a TDS because they have never lived in the house. They are a successor trustee. They are representing LLC. They're a power of attorney. Any number of things will create the ESD as opposed to the TDS. Same thing with the SPQ, seller property questionnaire. You can revert back to this. If you've had one of these signed that said, I've never lived in the house, then it makes these not necessary. You can still fill them out if they know anything about them, but it makes them not necessary. All right, so all of these things and all of these things all need to be in the hands of the people no later than day 7, unless you have a different day put in there. And there's a checkbox for you to change the day if you want. And notice reports and inspections that already exist. Okay, so what that is that say you were in escrow and you had a termite report already done. Well, that's wonderful. Send it out to them. Here's the termite report. It already exists, so I may as well give it to you. And that'll save us having to pay for another one or saving somebody having to pay for another one. They may or may not ask for the work to be done. They may or may not ask for that company to do it. But as a seller, I have that report. And I paid for that report, whatever I paid, $125 or $150, whatever it is. I paid for that report, so it's mine as a buyer. So if I have a report like that, I need to supply it. If I have a septic inspection for a septic tanks, if I have a well inspection for a well that I have on a property, whatever it is, if I already have that report, then I am to provide that. And that's all within 7 days. Now, the buyer and the buyer's agent and anybody that they hire is to complete all their investigations by day 17, unless there's another number put in there. And there is, like I said, on all of these, there's a little blank for you to change that number if you want. And they can do basically whatever investigations are important to them. If they see a weird roof out there when they go out, they can complete an investigation on the roof. If they went out and the house was hot and it shouldn't be, they can have an HVAC, but they can do whatever investigations they want as long as it is in accessible areas and they don't pound holes in walls and things like that. And they have 17 days to complete their investigations. At that point in time, they can either say, okay, everything's fine, we don't care. Or they may, and this says possible, request for repairs. And that's as soon as practicable. All right, so if you have this day, if this says day 17, so somebody says, well, should I give them 2 days after that? Well, 2 days after that, that would be the maximum. If they had the home inspection done on day 5 or 6 or 7, then as soon as practicable becomes 8 or 9 or 10, doesn't it? It's just a couple of days after the investigations are complete. Appraisal should be in hand by day 17. You've got a loan contingency in place, and the loan contingency is in place for 17 business days, which is really going to turn out to be, for a lender or a bank or something, it's going to turn out to be more like 21 days or something. But it's 17 business days, but they can't complete their loan approval without an appraisal in hand. So have you got the appraisal back yet? Has the appraiser gotten the report back yet? Do we know if the house appraised for the right price? Whatever, those questions need to be asked to a lender to find out where we are with this whole process. All right. I put in here 2 days after request, seller's response to RR, that's the request for repairs. And so if you get it on day 10, then by day 12 or something, you should be responding to that if your seller chooses to respond. Now, when we go over corrections, inspections and corrections class before too awfully long, you'll see that on the repair request that a seller doesn't have to even respond to it. However, it is kind of an appropriate thing to do. Even if you're not going to take care of anything, there is a checkbox on there that says we're not going to take care of any of this stuff. And at least the buyer recognizes that you're not going to take care of anything. Whereas if you choose not to respond at all, then there could be additional issues down the road. So just something to think about. Okay, full loan approval, we just said that, 17 business days. Notice that's business days. These other things are all calendar days. And calendar days just follows the calendar down the road, the 1st through the 17th, the 1st through the 7th, the 1st through the 5th, whatever it is. Business days takes out holidays and weekends in some cases, or the very least Sundays in most cases. So it changes the days a little bit. Contingency removal for contractual contingencies. Now, all these things that we've talked about, these have established dates in the RPA, in the residential purchase agreement. They are established dates. And those dates, as we hit those dates, we would like to get contingency removal for those things. Now, you may not get contingency removal for everything because maybe they haven't gotten everything done. But it's time to get a contingency removal done for all of the things that we can. So maybe we can't get the loan contingency done yet, but we can get the investigation period contingency done. So wherever you are on that, you can get those contingencies removed. Every time you get a contingency removed, you strengthen your contract. Because we had 17 days, and on day 18, I signed a contingency removal that said that's no longer a contingency for the agreement that we put together. If during these other times and dates and everything else, we have to get a wood pest certification instead of just an inspection, I wait until all of these 17 days, I wait until these other investigations are completed before I order work to be done. And the reason, and by the way, when I have these 17 and 18 days and things, this is based on like about a 30 to 35 day contract. I know that we have contracts that somebody says, well, we'll close in 14 days. Okay, great. Sooner the better. Or we'll close in 21 days or whatever. So obviously all these dates move up a little bit, or should move up a little bit if we are trying to close it more quickly. But this is the maximum we want to run out to. So even if they're going to have a 60-day contract, I want a lot of these things done in the first 17 days or 7 days or whatever it is. So if by day 18, and I get a removal on their investigation contingencies, but there's work that needed to be done to get a clearance. Then I'll order that on day 18-ish. Other required repairs, maybe I need a septic certification, maybe I need a well certification. Maybe I need the property to be surveyed because it's a rural property out in the hills and nobody even knows where the corners are or something. So those kind of things all get taken care of after that 17 days. So we start working on those then. We need certifications signed by the buyers. So what certifications am I talking about? These. Once I get a septic certification, once I get a well certification, once I get a wood pest certification, once I get the survey report. When I get those things in, I want them signed by the buyers. And I'm not talking I'm talking I as an agent, okay? So this isn't Terry rewriting rules. This is just Terry telling you what I as an agent want. So within 20 to 25 days, I want to have all of these things done and signed. And I want to check with my TC, and hopefully I've checked with he or her several times during the course of things, but I want to check to find out if the file's ready. Do we have everything else in? Are we waiting for anything from the other agent? Are we good to go? Buyer's funds to close escrow. So what are those? Well, buyer's going to have a bunch of funds that they need. I know they gave us a deposit, but we still need the down payment money. We still need escrow fees. We still need whatever the fees are that the buyer was responsible for. We need to have those in to close escrow. Again, we prefer by wire transfer, but our second most favorite is a cashier's check. Drawn on a California bank is best. So you have a cashier's check and you hand carry it in here. That's okay. That works for us. The things that do not work for us are things like a postal money order. And for one thing, you can't get those in amounts of more than, I think, $500 or something like that. So how many of you would have, how many would you have to come in with to get your down payment taken care of? And we certainly don't want personal checks. If by chance personal check was absolutely the only way and an escrow agreed to take it and things, I can tell you that funds won't be dispersed until that clears. So if that takes 3 days to clear, 5 days to clear, a week to clear, whatever it is, nothing's happening until that's cleared because we want to make sure that all funds are in our escrow account before we start writing checks out of our escrow account. So they bring in their funds to close escrow. The CD that I told you about earlier, that's sent out for signing by the lender. Loan doc is ready on about day 28, give or take. Final walkthrough for the buyer. In the contract, it says that 5 days prior to escrow closing, the buyer has the opportunity to go out and conduct a final verification of property condition. And we go out and we do the walkthrough with our buyers. We see if there's anything that was supposed to be completed or repaired or taken care of that has not been. That is what the final walkthrough is for. It's also to make sure that the property is in substantially the same condition as the day that they got the accepted offer. So those are the only things we're looking for. Things that had to be repaired, were agreed to be repaired, and were repaired. And is there anything that's happened to the property since that, you know what, when I came in here before and I wrote the offer and everything, the pool was all sparkly and shiny and filters were working and pumps were pumping and everything was, and now it's green and it has frogs. Okay, so that's an issue. And that's something that you could write in there. We do it 5 days before close of escrow because that still allows you time to get things taken care of prior to funding. And you have a little bit of a lever to use or a little bit of a hammer at that point in time. Once you've closed escrow, I said this before, you know, I mean, you can go to court afterwards and things, but once you closed escrow, you basically closed escrow. You went ahead and closed escrow knowing that the pool was green. knowing that they had to move a grand piano out through a picture window in the front of the house because that's the only way it would fit, and now the picture window isn't there anymore. There are things that happen during the course of moving things that make it a little bit less than substantially the same condition as when I bought it. And those kind of things, but it's not meant to be a new wish list. Oh, wow, gosh, now that they've taken the pictures off the wall, I can see that it needs painting, so I'm gonna put down that it needs painting. No, that's not part of it. You have to make sure that people understand that this is just to see if the things we asked for are done. And to make sure that it's in substantially the same condition. Now, do you think when I bought the house 30 days ago that there was probably off-color paint behind the picture? And probably. Could I see it then? No, because the picture was hanging up there. But there are going to be some things, but there are going to be some other things that are real obvious that have happened since we wrote the offer. And those kind of things we still have a few days to take care of. So make sure that no matter which side you're on, whether you're representing the seller or the buyer, make sure that house keys, mailbox keys, remotes are all ready for the buyer. And I don't care what that is. I don't care whether it's you taking it into your office. I don't care if your seller puts all of their keys and remotes into the silverware drawer in the kitchen or whatever it is, but make sure those arrangements are made and make sure it includes all of the mailbox keys and remotes and things that are supposed to be with the property. So escrow and title then set it up. We talked about this when we were going through escrow. They'll set it up for recording with the county. We'll get a confirmation of recording when that's been done. And at that point in time, we can turn over keys. Now, from a liability standpoint, I always recommend that no keys are turned over before it records. Now, I know that people make different arrangements during the course of things. I know that sometimes your contract says that the seller gets to stay in the property for a certain amount of days after close of escrow. 3 days after, 5 days after, 10 days after, whatever those are. I know that there are different things that happen like that. But the main thing to remember is that house does not belong to the seller anymore. But if you turn over keys to a buyer before the seller has completely moved out, then there's some potential liability down there. Either a seller could sue you for letting somebody have keys when they still had personal property in the house, or there are just too many things. So try to remember that we're not doing anything until after it's recorded, and I know it's changed and we've met all the other obligations of the contract, like a seller allowed to stay in late, or a buyer and able to move in early or whatever, or park stuff in the garage. I know that all of these things come up. I'm just saying that this is the main one to remember, is the wallets, until it records, it still belongs to the seller. And after it records, it belongs to the buyer. I've had buyers in my life go in and change the keys the very day that it recorded. And it turns out the seller didn't have everything out, and now they didn't have any access to the property. And so now we had to make arrangements to when somebody could be there and when they couldn't and everything. Just try to keep that in mind. All right, TC, we'll upload the last of the paperwork. Compliance, we have a terrific compliance department that works hard all the time on reviewing sky slope files. Everything we do, there's a couple of new faces on there, and everything we do, and I'm not sure how you did it before, but everything we do has a sky slope file. Sky slope is kind of our way to manage and keep all the files in one place and things. And so that'll probably be taken care of with by your TC, where they upload the last of it, and then compliance reviews everything. And they put a little stamp on there that says 100%, which means that it's done. And then Veronica, that I told you about before, does an e-check. And it's issued if the file is shown complete. And then it's done. Now, I wrote in here just as a disclaimer, and I disclaimed it earlier and things, is that Times and circumstances often change during the course of a transaction. One of our many responsibilities is to attempt to make sure that the contract dates are met or amended. This list is a guide, not a guarantee. Keep everyone in the loop. We talked about the importance of communication before. That doesn't change. We need to communicate what's going on. We need to know where things are. We need to know what our TC is doing. We need to know what escrow is doing. We need to know what our lender is doing. We have a lot of responsibility after we accept an offer, get an offer accepted. Our responsibility then falls to facilitate the contract to the best of our ability and make sure that it goes through. You know, people are already anxious. We've talked about this before. You're selling a house and you're anxious. You have to move. You've been here for 15 years and your kids don't want to go, but you have a job transfer and it starts on such and such a day. Or there's medical issues in the family and you need to move to a smaller house. There are lots and lots of things that can happen. So there's already anxiety. And what we need to do is we need to kind of absorb some of that anxiety. And I don't mean that you should stay awake at night, but I will tell you that you will. And there will be some nights that you go, oh man, did I get that signed or not? And whatever it happens to be. And there will be times that you say, oh, how am I going to tell them that these buyers are trying to cancel? What am I going to? Well, the important thing to know is that you are the middleman, right? You're not telling a buyer that they can't buy the house. You're not telling a seller that they can't sell a house. You're only trying to make sure that all the things that have to happen that are necessary to the completion of this transaction are happening in a timely manner. And so pay close attention to the timelines that are here. And like I said, I know that they're different. A couple of things that are just little helpful hints. And this is to help escrow along the way, but it also helps your situation. If it's in a trust, get a complete copy of the trust and addendums if there are any. Get a copy of a death certificate. If it's in a trust and the two people on the trust are still both alive, obviously, there's no copy of a death certificate. If one passes away, we need a copy of the death certificate. If they're both passed away and it's being handled by a successor trustee, then we need a copy of a death certificate. If it's power of attorney, we need a copy of a power of attorney. A power of attorney, as most of you know, is only good as long as the person is alive. So if you have a power of attorney for somebody, or they say, well, I have a power of attorney for my mom, but she just passed away. Well, then the power of attorney passed away as well. It is no longer valid in taking care of any of these things. We need a copy of letters of testamentary or administration or full authority. If it's in probate or something, we need to know what's going on. This is all part of the stuff that we need to get together. Escrow is going to ask you for this stuff, so you'll get reminded, but don't wait for the reminder. These are just helpful hints. Once a party is deceased, their social security number should not be used. Now we've got a successor trustee that should be obtaining or should be using their numbers because that's how they're going to be moved. Mobile homes, manufactured homes. If you can get copy of seller's registration or certificate of title, verify the seller's name, verify the year of the mobile. Give copies to escrow when you open it up so that they don't have to dig. If it's a land and mobile, so it's not on permanent foundation, it's maybe in a park where they pay space rent, then we have to make sure that we let everybody know that way so we're not spending a lot of time looking for the wrong things. If it's on a permanent foundation, call title for a copy of the recorded 433. That's what 433 is, the code for permanent foundation on a manufactured home. It makes it real property instead of personal property on real property. Again, you need the death certificates and things just like you would anything else. And if you cannot obtain a copy of the registration or title, at least write down the information that you can get off the mobile. Most of them will have a decal number or a serial number or some kind of insignia. Those things are on there someplace. And if you can get those numbers, any one of those numbers, you don't need all of them, but any one of those numbers has kind of an autofill when you're putting it in. It says, oh, okay, this decal number applies to this mobile home. And that happens to be the one that we're selling. So anyway, get those things together whenever you can. Those are just little helpful hints on your escrow or for your escrow. Oh, that's fun. That loaded sideways, but that's okay. It would have been pretty squishy the other way. This is just a California property tax guideline. Most of you know what those are. But if you have any question about it, there's just a little chart in there. And that is all I have for today. Now you know everything about closing an escrow and everything that goes on. And if you don't, you can refer back to these notes. Are there any questions before we take off and go back to work, doing other things?
Yes, I put one in the chat for
Oh,
you.
you did? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I can't read the chat at the same time I do.
I know. It was for later.
Yeah, I get it. What was the question? Or do I have it?
Well, I was gonna say we were supposed to close on the 10th, which is today. And so they already did their walkthrough. Now, it's not gonna close. I just got the call that it's not gonna close till maybe the end of the week, maybe.
Okay.
And so what do we do about that? Do we have to have some kind of proof that they already did the walkthrough? I mean, I don't think we have to do it again and again, right?
You don't have to do it again and again. It's per contract. So as long as you have the original copy that says when they did it, you have that, right?
No, that's what I was asking.
Oh, yeah. Get a copy of the verification of property condition,
Okay.
dated the day that they did it.
Yeah, okay, so I need to get that from the buyer's agent. All right, that's
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Verification of the property, what you call it again?
Verification of property condition.
Okay, all
We
right.
call it final walkthrough, but the official name
Yeah.
is, if you go to the zip forms, if you type in VP,
Oh, okay.
then it pops up.
Okay, yeah, she hasn't done that, and I think she's just harried right now, so I better make sure she
Yeah,
gets it. Okay, thank you so much.
you're welcome. Okay, everybody. I will let you go. I'm going to stop recording.
Great escrow
Oh, good,
information. Thank you.
good. Glad it helped. All right, bye-bye, everybody. Call me if you need me. I'll be around.
Okay, thank you.